Hello, this is JoJo. This is my first tutorial. It's sort of a test before I do my tutorial on the tile that everyone likes. Here I'm mixing up my dark turquoise from Just Resin to put down. I'm going from dark to light, so I'm first putting down the dark turquoise at the top. Mixing it up really good because you don't want to have little clumps of pigment in your waves. A lot of dead space here. Sorry about that. I'm learning. You don't want to put too much because you don't want to fill up your coaster because you've got like 4 more colors to go. Moderation is key. It's a little bit tricky because this mold, the tops are back to back, so it's backwards when you blow them out, and it's a little bit hard to hold the heat gun backwards because you can't exactly pick up the mold when it's full of resin and turn it around. Or at least I wouldn't want to do that. I wouldn't want to risk messing up the waves that I've done on the one side. This is my Adriatic Sea from Low Res Pigments, which you can get on Laura's Art Corner. That's a really good website to get your supplies from. They've got gemstones and glass glitter and all kinds of pigments. They've got lots of luster pigments, which I really like. This is a luster pigment, by the way. And your luster pigments are powder. They're mica, so you really got to stir them. I'm not sure if they're mica, but they're powder. And they don't have an expiration date like the regular pigments do, which is really good because I've got a bunch of Just Resin pigments that I bought that are supposed to expire after a year, and I've had them 2 years, and I don't know if it's safe to use them or not. If anybody knows, please leave that in the comments. So this is my Caribbean Sea by Just Resin. This is a regular pigment. I get all my Just Resin pigments at Artist Till Death, which is a really good online store. They've got all your Just Resin products, stone top, tabletop. Okay. Putting down the clear keeps the colored resin from reaching the bottom where the waves will be. It like pushes the color away. It's like a barrier, which is what you want. You don't want your colors going into the clear before you put down your waves. And it also gives the illusion of some clear underneath the cells that everybody likes, that I like. So I'm putting down the clear along the crevices. Now I'm going to continue to put down my pigments, or put down my colors. I'm narrating this because I'm wearing personal protective equipment while I'm making these, and I can't really talk while I'm doing it. So this is the reason for the voiceover. It's my first voiceover. This is a Caribbean Blue. I think I already said that. I did, didn't I? By Just Resin. It's my favorite color. It's not the best color to use in oceans. I think maybe dark turquoise is by Just Resin. Because you could dilute that a lot and make it different transparencies and really make realistic oceans that way. But when I'm making coasters, I like some more pigment because it's on a, it's like clear all the way through. And when you're doing it on a surface, you can get away with more transparency. Unless you want these to be transparent, then you can just use dark turquoise at different concentrations. Okay, this is the Mermaid Tail Incredible Ink by Incredible Ink. I don't remember where I got this, but I mixed it with just a tiny bit of interference green. The interference green is the Just Resin powder pigment. The reason I mixed it in with the mermaid tail is to give it a little bit of shimmer. I like a little bit of shimmer. And as you can see, I'm not taking it all the way to the clear because it's going to spread out a little bit. Always allow for more room than you think you're going to need because resin stretches. And you'll put your like shoreline too close to the edge of your whatever your substrate, and then the color works its way down, and then you don't have any room for your waves. I hate that. And sometimes you'll have your waves dripping off the edge. I have a couple of those paintings when I started. I've been doing this about a year and a half. Before that, I was really into alcohol ink, and I made paintings with it. And I was also making oceans with it on tile, which is how I got the idea to put alcohol ink under the tiles, on top of the tiles, and then putting the resin waves on top of that, because I wasn't making realistic waves with the alcohol ink. I was using like snow cap on top of the edge, and it just wasn't looking realistic. But I was selling a few of those on Etsy. But then just like 3 weeks ago, I realized, wow, I could put the waves over the alcohol ink, and it would just like look really real. And so I tried it and it worked. So I was very happy about that. Now this is my tray I'm working on. I put down my clear at the bottom first. That's what I should have done with the coasters. It marks your shoreline and keeps the colors from seeping too close to the shoreline. Like I said, it's like a barrier. That's how I like to think of it. I put down my dark turquoise and then my Adriatic Sea. My Caribbean blue. And my mermaid tail. Now I'm putting down my white, which is Angel White by Resin pigment. You can get that on Laura's Art Corner too. I think I like it more than Just Resin's titanium white, which is saying a lot because titanium white by Just Resin is famous for its cells. And that's what all the experts use on YouTube if you go and look for videos on it. And actually, now I'm mixing up the colors a little bit. I don't mind if they're like just separated, but to be more realistic, I swirl them up just a little bit because the ocean really does like change colors suddenly, in my opinion, or from what I've seen. But I don't ever mix them up too much because you're going to be mixing them up anyway when you blow out your waves. And there might be other videos on YouTube that explain this all a lot better than me, but this is kind of, like I said, a test tutorial for my tile beaches that I'm going to show you how to do. And I want to make sure that I'm being clear in my instructions, and if this is the way you all want me to do it, I'm just doing it to get feedback. Okay, now I'm going to do my waves on my tiles, on my coasters, not my tiles. I'm putting down a little bit too much white here. I'm putting it along the crevices first. All the nooks and crannies, you need to make sure that you get into them. You don't have to be like perfect about it, but try to get into each one. Now I'm putting down my second wave. It's what I call second wave. I do this so I don't have to go back and do another layer. And it works most of the time. That's how I did my tiles that y'all like. And you start with the first wave blowing it, which is a little bit difficult here because the crevices are keeping it from blowing out. So I'm really trying to balance the whole don't melt my mold while also putting enough heat on it to create the cells. So I think I gave up on the bottom and I just went to the second wave and I'm blowing that out. And then I'm coming back down to the bottom because I really don't want to melt my mold. And I think I've used a little bit too much white on this one, even though cells will develop. Moving the white a little bit over to the sides because when you do coasters and you do waves on them, I don't know if you all have the same experience, but my white tends to sink into the middle. That might be because I have them a little bit too full. I think that might be what it is. I don't think I mentioned yet that when you pour your resin too thick, it's really hard to make realistic looking waves because the white sinks into the deep resin, and that's when you get all the sort of white lines that sink or that go towards the middle. I really don't know how to explain it, but I've got a couple that I've done that I've had that result, and I'm going to show you. I use less white on this one, and I put some white lines or white squigglies up into the ocean because I think that gives a more realistic look. Now, I know a lot of people like the look of just the straight lines. I know there's oceans that look like that, but I like mine a little bit more natural. So I usually put a few wisps of white up into the ocean and then I blow them out last. That one looks a little bit better, in my opinion. I'm not going to say in my opinion again. Before I did the voiceover, I had a bunch of cussing in it. So that's another reason I did the voiceover. You could hear it through my mask. So this is a rated G version. I'm putting it down even less white on this one. Little white wisps. I'm putting my heat gun about halfway on the heat and on low. I usually use high speed on my bigger pieces and high heat, the highest heat too, because heat's what makes the cells. Lately I've been doing it on medium speed though. It's still the high heat though, and it seems to be, that's how I did it with the beach tiles that you all like. I did it that way. I did it on medium speed and then high heat. Total Boat Tabletop is a really good resin. It holds the cells really well because it's on the thicker side. I'm going to give you a couple tips and tricks while I'm doing this last one. When you're making your waves, you never want to blow out too many bubbles with your heat gun because that heats up the resin. When the resin is heated, it makes it runny and hot, and that makes it hard to hold cells. When I pour my tabletop resin, I let it sit about 10 minutes to thicken up before I even pour the colors, because if you don't let it thicken a bit right when you mix it and you put down the colors will spread down to the edge of the coaster and you won't have room to do your waves. The heat gun I'm using is called is Seek 1 heat gun. I thought I was using my other one, but I'm using the Seek 1 heat gun. And it's like $28 on Amazon. It's got a variable heat. It's got like a dial to dial up the heat. And it's got low speed and high speed. Another tip is you can wrap your handles with the kind of wrap that sticks. It's like the sticky wrap that sticks to the other end when you wrap it around something. I can't remember what it's called. I think I have some. Well, anyway, I use that on the handles and that protects them from the resin, and it keeps, when you're done with your project, you can just unwrap it and you have a nice clean handle. Okay, I brought out cells with my blowtorch very sparingly because I don't want to melt the mold. And there's my waves. They're going to change a lot when they're sitting there, so I'm hoping they'll stay how they look now, but I know they won't. I know the white will sink towards the middle, And if I do it too much, that means that I poured too thick of the resin too thick. So I'll have to try again. The only one of these I don't really like is the first one, the one I'm pointing to right now. I'm moving the white over to the sides with my little paint spreader because the white has sunk into the middle a little bit and spread out from the sides and left clear. Okay, now I'm going to put the waves on my tray. I'm having to use the heat gun to pop the bubbles when I usually don't because there's just so many micro bubbles on this. I don't know what happened. Lots of micro bubbles. I don't ever heat up my resin before using it because that makes it runny, and that's like doom for cells. Like if you're using art resin or one of the thinner resins for your cells and you're not making them, the cells are disappearing or just running together and making like wave mist or whatever you want to call it, like little wave puffs of clouds. It's because your resin's probably too thin or because you're heating it too much and it's getting runny. I should have done that circle on the right. I should have just like done it across straight, but that's okay. Okay, now I'm getting ready to blow it out. Blowing the waves out right now. I'm sorry I don't have a lot of video of the way I'm holding the gun. That's like a big problem. But I'm holding it at a 45-degree angle. I know that's what everybody says, but it's true. That's how I'm holding it. And I'm pushing. It's kind of like you're pushing the waves with your hand forward, like how you'd imagine doing that. And you do that with a heat gun. You sort of like push it forward. Push the air forward, and it like makes the white go over the top of the resin, and it creates the cells. See, 45-degree angle. Some people hold it exactly horizontal to the table, but I can't do that because I have a bad wrist that doesn't turn at all, and I can't do that movement. In fact, I have a really bad problem. I have like a disability. I don't know if I probably haven't mentioned it. I jumped off the roof at age 13 and I messed up my elbow so bad that it messed up my ability to turn my wrist at all. So my wrist is like permanently set. I can't, it's called supination, the movement I can't do. It makes it hard for me to do everything. Sorry. I see those little lines there. I wanted to blow them out a little bit more. That's what I did there. Okay, now I'm looking at my coasters, deciding which one I like best. Which one do you all like best? I'm curious. The top left, the top right, the bottom right, or the bottom left? I'm not sure which one I like best. I think the third or the fourth one, or top right or top left. I think my tray came out really realistic looking. Maybe next time we'll do a little bit more white on that one, though. Less white on that one. Okay, that's about it. Thank you for watching. Give me your feedback. Goodbye.